Let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders here for a little bit. Look, obviously, this season, and certainly the second half of the season, it's all about working towards the future and figuring out who's going to be on this team in the future, what the structure of this Raiders franchise is going to look like. Now, look, I know they're still technically in the hunt, but realistically, the odds of making the playoffs are pretty small. It would be kind of a happy surprise. The reality right now for Raiders and Raiders fans, you guys know this. I hear about you guys all the time in the comment section saying, hey, we got to figure out who's going to be on this team for the future. And of course, the biggest position to figure out is the quarterback position. And there's some news out of Las Vegas to kind of highlight what Devontae Adams feels about that, specifically Aiden O'Connell. And I think it's pretty interesting. Let's pull up the report and we'll talk about it on the other side. This is from NBC Sports. These last 5 games will be important for everyone in owner Mark Davis's overall evaluation of the club, but particularly O'Connell. Receiver Devontae Adams said this week that the rookie signal caller has the backing of the players around him. I just want to see him play to the best of his abilities and just trust himself and do what he's been doing and do the things that he was when he had a real great rhythm in the preseason. Adams said in his Wednesday press conference, just kind of remind himself of what he can do and just keep building. All right, there's a couple things that Adam said here that I think is really interesting. First of all, we all know that the Raiders organization right now, under the interim GM and interim head coach, they've empowered the players to be more honest and direct. So we know this just isn't just, family company man talk right here from Devontae Adams just saying the party line. He's saying what he really means. And here's what I thought makes this very interesting is most of the time, any player, when they get out in public like this, they'll never really want to talk about a player building and getting better in terms of growing individually, maybe as a team, but not individually. Usually it's a lot of Aiden O'Connell's great. We just want to keep doing what he's doing. He's doing fantastic. We're all going down the right path here, kind of thing, right? Kind of sort of cookie cutter kind of stuff. The fact that Adams is very publicly saying, hey, we want him to keep getting better, to me is a sign that the Raiders organization really views Aiden O'Connell. And when I say the Raiders organization, I mean right now the current coaching staff, the players, and a lot of people in the front office, right? The new regime will have a different viewpoint potentially, but that Raiders organization, as it currently sits, they really like what they see in Aiden O'Connell. Because look, Devontae Adams, if he didn't like Aiden O'Connell, if he didn't like his potential, I think he would come out and just say more cookie cutter kind of stuff or say, hey, look, we're just focusing on getting better one play at a time or whatever cliche you can think of. The fact that he's coming out and saying, listen, everyone's around him, everyone's supporting him. We know he can be good. We just want him to keep building. To me, is a sign that this Raiders team really thinks Aiden O'Connell could be their quarterback of the future. And that could be massive for Las Vegas if they actually have found their long-term solution, and especially if he's a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the Raiders and their quarterback situation, specifically Adams' comments. But Raiders fans, look, you still got more football left to play this weekend. You got upcoming a big game against the Minnesota Vikings. Give us your prediction. Vikings versus Raiders in the comment section below. Final score. I think it's going to be kind of an interesting game. Let us know how you think it'll play out in the comment section below. But Miles, what do you think of these comments by Adams and everything with the Raiders quarterback situation right now?
Yeah, Nick, I think it's really interesting because you brought up, this coach has given these players the freedom to speak, that kind of thing. And you also brought up the fact the Raiders probably aren't, they're in the playoff hunt, but they're like right at the edge of not being in the playoff hunt. And most likely they're not going to make it there. So this gives Devontae Adams a unique situation where if he decides to stay with the Raiders long term, which I think at right now all evidence points that he will, he should be lobbying for what he wants the direction of this team to be. He, like you said, quarterback position is the most important position. He either likes O'Connell and he wants to keep him, or he's like, well, there's a great draft out there. We should be looking towards the draft, get one of those guys. Free agency, lobbying for free agency. But no, he spends his time, his opportunity to talk. He could either deflect and not say anything, which would be the nice way to go about it, but he doesn't. He goes out and says, hey, O'Connell has got a strong foundation, talks about the preseason when he got into the rhythm. He looked really good. I want him to keep building, keep growing towards that. So, in a way, he gives him his endorsement of, I haven't seen enough of O'Connell yet. I want to see what O'Connell can do. I think that he has potential. I've seen some flashes, I've seen some stuff in that manner that I like what I see from O'Connell. I like the player, I like the person. So, I think this is a really interesting endorsement from Devontae Adams, like we already elaborated on, when he doesn't really have to come out and say, hey, I like this guy. He can say whatever he wanted. He could start to pitch his build ideas for the future of this team. Because, like we said, there's an interim head coach. We don't know who the long-term head coach is going to be. We don't really know too much about this Raiders team in general. There's so much that could change next year. It's kind of exciting for Raiders fans because there's a lot of potential, a lot of opportunity. But The fact that one of your best players, probably one of the best players in the NFL, Devontae Adams, wants to see more of O'Connell, likes what he sees at times, and thinks there's a lot of promise there. I think O'Connell is a very intriguing prospect, and I would be excited about O'Connell as well. Use this season as your viewing portal into O'Connell's future. I think it's really great news for the Raiders, and I really like what Devontae Adams had to say here.
Well, and you brought up a great point, the fact that Devontae Adams didn't have to say this, right? He could have completely deflected. And here's one thing important to remember is the positional impact of this, right? Because obviously Devontae Adams being a wide receiver, Aiden O'Connell being a quarterback, there's sometimes is a very different dynamic if the receiver doesn't think the quarterback is up to snuff, right? Sometimes you'll say the defensive players will be like, hey, we're all behind Aiden O'Connell, or the offensive line will say, hey, Aiden O'Connell needs to keep building. But it's a different dynamic. We see it all the times. Receivers, when they aren't getting the football or when they're not getting as many opportunities or the passes are inaccurate or whatever it may be, quarterback's misreading it because he's a young quarterback. Veteran receivers can sometimes get more frustrated. They're more like, this guy stinks, bring in somebody else. Devontae Adams is the exact opposite, and he's empowered to be honest right now. So the fact that he's coming out and saying, hey, listen, I like what O'Connell's doing. I want him to keep building. Like you said, Mice, I think you used the right word. This is an endorsement of Aiden O'Connell of what Devontae Adams thinks is the right answer for the long-term situation at quarterback. And look, Raiders fans, Jimmy G didn't get it done, obviously, injuries. He's not what he once was. Even when he at his best, Jimmy G was above average. I think he was a good, solid starting quarterback, not great. Obviously, with the injuries, Jimmy G is no longer at that level. And we all know Devontae Adams very famously did not exactly see eye to eye in a lot of situations with Jimmy G and of course with Josh McDaniels as well. And it wasn't out in the open, but it was kind of known. You could see what was going on the sidelines and see what was going on, reading behind the lines and reports and things like that. You're seeing the opposite with Aiden O'Connell. And if Devontae Adams, one of the best players in football, like you alluded to, arguably the best player on this team with Max Crosby maybe being the exception. There are two great players right there. If he's behind Aiden O'Connell, that means there's a real sign that Aiden O'Connell could be something special for the Raiders. So I think this is the best sign that Raiders fans could be hoping for right now. Of course, you got some more football left to say. Let's see how O'Connell plays down the home stretch. But the fact that one of the best receivers in the NFL, a guy who's played with Aaron Rodgers and really liked Aaron Rodgers, is very supportive of Aiden O'Connell is a great sign for the young Raiders quarterback.